The grocery store buzzed with its usual hum of small talk, beeping scanners and the dull rhythm of carts rolling across linoleum. Fluorescent lights flickered slightly overhead, casting a sterile glow over neat rows of produce and packaged goods. Amid it all, a frail woman in a faded brown sweater moved slowly toward the checkout counter, her steps careful, deliberate. Beside her walked a small boy, no more than 8, with curly hair that bounced slightly as he walked, his small hand wrapped tightly around hers. Her name was Evelyn Harper, though few in the store knew that. To them she was just another elderly woman in modest clothes, with deep lines of resilience etched into her face. Her grandson Malik glanced up at her with wide eyes, his voice quiet but eager. "Grandma, do you think we have enough for the cookies?" Evelyn hesitated, her gaze falling to the box clutched in his hands. It was the same brand her late daughter used to buy Malik's mother. The memory of her soft voice, her laughter, and the way she used to sneak cookies into the cart for her. Sun flooded Evelyn's chest with warmth and sorrow all at once. She offered a gentle smile. "We'll see, sweetheart." Their cart contained only a few items: rice, milk, bread, nothing fancy, nothing extra. The cookies were the only indulgence, a quiet rebellion against the heavy routine of budgeting and sacrifice that defined her. Dazed as they stepped into line, Evelyn reached into her worn leather purse and pulled out a small velvet pouch. The coins inside jingled softly as she loosened the DRAWSTRINGS dot in front of them. The line moved slowly. Behind them, another man stepped into queue, tall, quiet, wearing a simple black jacket and a cap pulled low over his brow. His eyes, however, were alert. He noticed everything dot as Evelyn reached the front. The cashier barely looked up. His name. Tag read Brad, and he wore the kind of bored, smug expression reserved for someone who thought their job was beneath them. When his eyes finally met Evelyn's, they narrowed slightly. "That it?" he asked flatly. Evelyn nodded and began. Gently placing her items on the counter, her movements measured. Malik stood beside her, clutching the cookie box with both hands like it was a sacred treasure. "These are my favorite," he said cheerfully, holding the package up for the cashier to see. Brad didn't respond. Instead, he watched with growing impatience as Evelyn opened her pouch and began counting out coins. Her hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the pressure of 1,000 invisible eyes. Brad let out a loud sigh. "Seriously?" he muttered, loud enough for others in line to hear. "You're really gonna pay with coins?" The words sliced through the moment like a blade. Evelyn's cheeks flushed red, but she continued counting. "It's not a bank, lady," he said. Louder now, arms crossed. "You couldn't count these at home before holding up the whole store?" Malik's eyes darted between his grandmother and the cashier, confusion creasing his small face. He didn't understand why the man was being so mean. Evelyn felt the stares on her back. Conversations behind her slowed to whispers. A few people chuckled. Quietly, she kept counting. Brad shook his head and looked toward the next customer. "Folks, this might take a while. Hope you're comfortable." Evelyn's hands shook more. The coins blurred in her vision as shame and anxiety swelled inside her. She swallowed hard and whispered, "I'm sorry, almost done." Brad snorted. "Sorry doesn't speed up the line." Just then, Evelyn realized something: she didn't have enough. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at Malik, who was still holding the cookies. She reached out, gently placing her hand over his. "We'll just take the rest, baby. Not the cookies today." He blinked, surprised. But then, in the most painfully grown-up way, he nodded and handed the box to her. "It's okay, Grandma." "I wasn't that hungry for them anyway," he said. Forcing a smile, Evelyn felt like her heart cracked in two. Brad yanked the cookies from her hand and dropped them into a return bin with a huff. "Finally," he said. "Now maybe we can move this line." He looked around at the customers, adding with a grin, "Thanks for your patience, everyone. Some people just don't know how to shop like normal human beings." Laughter rippled through a few in the line. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Her dignity, her pride, it was bleeding from her quietly. Malik reached for her hand again, his grip firm and warm, and just then something shifted. The man in the black jacket stepped forward. No one had noticed him until now. He had stood silently, observing, but the moment Evelyn turned away and tried to hold back her tears, he moved. "Hey," he said softly, but the firmness in his voice cut through the noise. Brad looked up. Surprised. The man walked toward the register and pulled a sleek leather wallet from his coat. "She's not going to leave here without those cookies." The store fell silent. Brad blinked. "Excuse me?" The man placed a crisp bill on the counter, locking eyes with him. "I said, ring up everything, including the cookies. I'll cover the difference." Evelyn turned to look at him, stunned. "I couldn't let that moment end like that," he said gently, more to her than to anyone else. "Not in front of him." Malik stared up at the stranger with awe. "Thank you, sir," Evelyn whispered, her voice quivering. The man nodded. Brad, caught off guard and clearly embarrassed, muttered something under his breath but rang up the items. Malik looked up at his grandmother, eyes wide. "Grandma." "He saved the cookies." She smiled through tears. "No, baby. He saved something much more important." Just when it seemed the last ounce of Evelyn's dignity was being torn away by Brad's cutting remarks, the cashier leaned forward, narrowed his eyes, and launched one final verbal strike. "This isn't a charity drive, ma'am. If you can't pay, maybe you should think twice before grabbing things you clearly can't afford." His voice was sharp, cold like a slap across the face. Evelyn's shoulders tensed. Malik's hand tightened around the box of cookies again, as if trying to shield them, or perhaps shield his grandmother. But neither of them could speak. Not yet. Then a shadow moved from the middle of the line. Someone stepped forward. Tall, still, purposeful, a man in a black jacket and dark sunglasses made his way past stunned shoppers. His steps were slow, each one echoing louder than the cashier's cruel words. As he reached the counter, he removed his sunglasses, revealing a gaze that was piercing and unmoved. His presence commanded attention, and suddenly even the background murmur of the store seemed to vanish into silence. "That's enough," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but the way he said it made everything else in the store stop. Forks of attention cut through the air. Heads turned. Phones lowered. The hum of judgment was replaced by attention so thick it could be carved. Brad, stunned, blinked and straightened. "Excuse me?" he said, as if trying to pretend he wasn't trembling. The man's eyes didn't leave him. "I've watched you humiliate her long enough," he said, voice firm. "And I'm wondering, is this how you treat all customers, or just the ones who count their dignity along with their coins?" Brad looked around awkwardly, trying to win back control. "Sir, look, I'm just doing my job, moving the line along. She's holding everyone up." The man slowly raised an eyebrow. "She's paying. That's her right. The fact that it takes a minute longer doesn't give you the right to humiliate her in front of her grandson." Brad opened his mouth to answer, but the stranger leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice to a low but powerful growl. "Respect isn't optional. Not in your job, not in life." Somewhere in the crowd, someone gasped. And then another voice rose up, loud enough for all to hear. "Wait, that's Keanu Reeves?" The room reacted like an engine igniting. Whispers and gasps followed. As the realization spread like wildfire, phones emerged. Eyes widened. Even Brad stepped back. "You're Keanu Reeves," he stammered, face shifting from smugness to fear. Keanu nodded once. "That's right. And I don't care if she's paying in coins or buttons, she gets treated with dignity." He turned to Evelyn, his face softening. Her hands were still shaking. She couldn't speak. Malik looked up at him, stunned, still holding the cookies. "These look delicious," Keanu said, kneeling slightly to look Malik in the eye. "I think they should definitely go home with you today." Malik blinked, still unsure if he was dreaming. Evelyn's eyes glistened with tears she could no longer hold. Keanu turned back to Brad. "Cancel the transaction." What?" Brad sputtered. "Cancel it," Keanu repeated. "All of it," Brad hesitated. "But you just said—" "I have a better idea," Keanu interrupted calmly. "Let's do this right." He turned to Evelyn. "We're going shopping again. This time, we're not worrying about pennies." The store fell even quieter. Some customers teared up. Others whispered blessings. Keanu Reeves grabbed a second cart and gently placed his hand over Evelyn's, leading her back into the aisles. "Take what you need," he said. "Not what you can afford. what you need, for you. And for Malik beamed, even toys? Keanu laughed warmly. If Grandma says yes, it goes in the cart. They moved through the store slowly, gathering essentials: first food, toiletries, medicine. Then came clothing, then snacks. And finally, toys. Malik clutched a bright yellow toy truck with stars in his eyes, while Evelyn, for the first time in months, allowed herself to choose a warm coat without checking the tag dot by the time they reached the checkout again. Their cart was overflowing. New cashier had taken over. Brad was nowhere to be seen. As the items were rung up, Keanu stood beside Evelyn, helping her load bags and assuring her it was okay. "I've never seen kindness like this," Evelyn whispered. "Not in a long time. You've given so much," he replied. "You're raising him, that's everything." Once the total was read out, Keanu quietly slid his card and completed the purchase without hesitation. No fanfare, no cameras. Just sincerity. As they left the store, applause broke out. Customers clapped and called his name, but Keanu just nodded politely. Guiding Evelyn and Malik toward the exit, near the doors, an elderly woman stepped forward. She touched Evelyn's shoulder gently. "You deserve this," she said. "Thank you for being strong. And thank you, sir, for reminding us what kindness looks like." Malik turned to Keanu and said in a quiet, reverent voice, "You're like a real-life superhero." Keanu knelt to his level. "You know what makes someone a hero?" he asked. Malik shook his head. "Doing the right thing when no one's watching. And loving someone more than yourself. You're already halfway there." Evelyn clutched her grandson, her heart full, for the first time in a long time. She didn't feel alone. Liam had been quiet for a while, holding Keanu's hand tightly, eyes wide as if still trying to understand everything that had happened. That's when Keanu knelt beside him, his tone gentle and steady like the warmth of a calm morning. "You." "No, Liam," he began, his voice low enough to invite trust. "Real heroes aren't the ones flying through the sky or wearing capes. They're the ones who show up every single day. The ones who love hard, care deeply, and never give up even when it's hard. Your grandma. She's one of those heroes." Liam looked up at Keanu, eyes glistening, and nodded as if something heavy yet beautiful finally made sense. From a distance, Brad stood half-hidden by a pillar, watching everything unfold. His shoulders sagged under the weight of regret. Moments passed before he finally took a shaky breath and stepped forward, his face flushed with shame. I was wrong," he stammered, eyes on the floor. "I shouldn't have treated you that way. I was angry, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry." Keanu turned to him slowly, his expression calm, not approving, not condemning, just still. "You don't need to know someone's story to show them respect," Keanu said softly. "Kindness is always an option. Choose it, Brad, especially when it's hardest." Brad swallowed, then nodded, words failing him. He turned around silently and disappeared toward the stockroom, his heart heavier, but maybe a little more open. Later that week, Mary was unloading groceries at home while Liam hummed from the living room, organizing cereal boxes like they were precious cargo. The phone rang. She almost didn't pick up, expecting another bill, maybe a telemarketer, but something told her to answer. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Hi, Mary, it's Keanu." His unmistakable voice floated through the receiver, and for a second, Mary felt the world pause. "Keanu? I didn't expect to hear from you," she said, stunned. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he replied warmly. "I just want to tell you something personally. I've talked to some people. We want to help more than just in the moment. We want to make sure Liam gets the education he deserves, so we're going to cover his schooling, fully, whatever he needs." There was silence, the kind that only happens when a heart is trying to catch up with its own joy. I don't even know what to say," Mary whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu said gently. "Just keep doing what you're already doing. You've done enough just by loving that boy." Unbeknownst to them, a customer at the store had recorded Keanu stepping in on that unforgettable day. A clip spread like wildfire online. Within hours, it had gone viral, shared across platforms with captions like, "This is what grace looks like," and Keanu. Reeves reminds us all how to be human. People commented by the thousands. This made me cry. Be like Keanu. My faith in humanity restored? The grocery store couldn't ignore the attention. The manager, stunned by the public's reaction, quickly rolled out a new policy: mandatory empathy training for all employees. But what surprised everyone most was Brad. He volunteered to lead the sessions. I got it wrong, he said on the first day, and I want to be the reason someone else gets it right. A few days later, he visited Mary personally. No cameras, no speeches, just an honest attempt to make things right. I never asked what you were going through, he said, eyes sincere. That was my mistake, but I'm learning, and I'm sorry. Mary looked at him for a long moment, her silence not cold but thoughtful. Then she nodded, accepting the apology not because it erased the pain but because it acknowledged it. Weeks passed. Spring slowly stretched into summer, and one afternoon, Mary and Liam went to the park. Liam clutched a brand-new soccer ball, something he'd chosen himself on their last shopping trip, and ran across the grass, his laughter echoing. Mary sat on a bench, hands folded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Peace. For the first time in what felt like forever, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. She glanced over and blinked as the door opened. Keanu stepped out, casually dressed, holding a simple brown package in his hands. Hey, Mary, he called, walking toward her. Thought you and Liam might like this. She took the package and carefully unwrapped it. Inside were two framed photos, one of her and Liam smiling from that day at the store, and the other was a handwritten message, to remind you that kindness always wins. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked up at him, voice trembling. You didn't just change our lives, Keanu. You gave us something we thought we'd lost. Hope. He stepped closer and smiled. You gave me something too, he replied softly. A reason to keep believing people still matter more than anything else. Keep being amazing, Mary. And with that he turned to join Liam on the field, kicking the ball gently toward him. Mary watched as her grandson giggled and ran after it, and for once the world felt exactly right.